What's going on, everybody? Second episode of the Rockets Collective.
Yep.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We appreciate everyone for tapping in. Last episode, we got about 2,500 views. So we appreciate y'all for support. And if you haven't already, definitely like, subscribe, all that good stuff. You can find this on, Apple, Spotify, wherever you want to listen. But yeah, we're going to go around the room this time, introduce everybody. Of course, you can find myself, Brado NBA, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and I'll kick it to Kel.
Yo, it's Kelly Eco, regional reporter for the NBA. You can find me on, well, I'm not on TikTok, but Blue Sky, Instagram, Twitter, X, Kelly Eco, same handle. Subscribe to The Athletic. Let's get it.
Kelly, nobody uses Blue Sky, man.
I don't use it. I don't use it either. I'm not gonna lie, I don't use it either. But it's out there. It's out there. Remember, there was that little whole wave when people were trying to push everybody towards that.
There was
signing up. Yeah. It's a little 2-week stretch, but I don't use that. So.
Fell off for sure.
So me, my name is Will. Y'all can find me on Twitter. I don't really use Instagram, but I am on TikTok. Bias Houston. And thanks to Mr. Raven's Zone, I guess I started a gimmick in the community. I don't know what I did today, man. I think I've been kind of chilling today, but that's where you can really find me. I'm excited to get into today's stream. We got some interesting topics for you guys lined up, and of course, we're gonna get some of the questions you guys gave us over the week.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'll pass it back off to Brad.
Yeah, let's get it. Of course, Kevin Durant is the hot topic. We're going to be talking about that. We'll chime in on the Steven Adams deal. And we have questions. We did a mailbag on social media, so we're answering your guys' questions today. So we'll just start it off. We'll kick it to Kel. KD news. I've seen, they are very underwhelmed with the offers they received, which makes sense. Of course, they don't have any leverage. But I'll let Kelly go in depth on that. Yeah.
So, as it pertains to the KD situation right now, it seems like everyone's in a holding pattern. Obviously, in this kind of situation, you understand that KD wants to go to the Spurs. He has a list of teams where he would prefer to go to. The Spurs are at the top of that list. The Rockets are also on that list because of obviously ties to Ime Udoka, ties to Royal Ivy, respect for players on that roster. The problem is, going back to what you said earlier, the Suns don't have a ton of leverage. Like, everyone knows that both parties are trying to find a solution away from each other. And that obviously hurts negotiations because if you're the Rockets, why are you going to give up an arm and a leg for a player that who knows who wants to come there, he wants to leave. He's already 37 years old. He's in the twilight of his career. And you're coming after a season where you just won 52 games. You went to the playoffs. You lost in the first round, but the timeline and the trajectory is much higher than if you're trying to sacrifice a boatload of your assets. So it makes sense why teams like the Rockets, the Spurs, the Heat, they aren't trying to put in these crazy blockbuster packages that would appease, a Phoenix Suns team to do business because, frankly, they don't have to. The onus is on them, not the other teams to do business. So that's kind of why you see things are in a holding pattern right now.
Yeah, there's been a ton of different reports. Well, I'm curious to get your input, and I'm really curious to see what this firm offer is that the Rockets put out that the Suns are underwhelmed with. It looks like they're a piece or two away, and that goes for the Miami Heat as well. But I have my idea of what the firm offer looks like. I'm curious to go around the room and see what y'all think as well. But you go, Will. Yeah, let's go, Will.
Y'all are not right for putting me on the spot like that. With that
you go first.
I do think that the package probably does include Jalen Green at this point in time. A big reason why is because it requires we have to match. I think Katie's making like $54 million somewhere in that ballpark, and so the Rockets would have to give up a huge lump. So I think we have the best deal out there unless Spurs open picks at chest. Yeah, I think it's possible we do. I think that it would require us to match that salary total, and in order for us to do that, one of Fred, Şengün, or Jalen Green would have to go. Or I guess you could. There's also the floated idea of like Dylan and Jabari, right? That kind of adds that up. But I don't. Obviously, they're not going to move Şengün. And one of the questions we're going to get to later in the show that y'all did ask was about like what it would look like if we were to move off of Fred VanVleet. I do not think that's happening at all this summer. So it kind of leaves you with the Jalen Green or Dylan and Jabari package. And I think they'll probably err on the side of Jalen Green, but who knows? I don't know. That's not me reporting anything. But yeah, that's probably what like the centerpiece of the trade is. And then I'd assume that there's some draft capital in there. I'd assume the Rockets are trying to move off of like pick 10. The Suns really want, one of the 27 or 29 picks back, probably both of them. And that's why I'd imagine that part of the reason why, the negotiations on the Rockets and Suns side is not going through just yet is because they're probably still working out, what additional is going in if somebody can beat that offer.
Man, Kelly, please tell me that. I see so many people say, they're getting the hypothetical trades. And I know you love the trade machine, so let's talk about this.
Hey, me and the trade machine, we good. I learned my lesson 3 years ago. I'm good on that. So the thing that I've come to figure out in these talks around the league, the Rockets are they've been notoriously tight-lipped in terms of what they're actually, like the players that they're actually trying to put in those packages. I have heard that, they don't want to lose Tari and Jabari, like for obvious reasons. Those guys are really integral parts of the Ime Udoka's system. In terms of what they're willing to package together for Kevin Durant, it's kind of tough to say. I mean, for me, trying to read the tea leaves, it seems to me, and this is just me, that they would be just trying to match salary. And it seems to me that they would be trying to explore a way to get KD while keeping Jalen, if that makes sense. And that's pretty much, if you're the Suns and you don't want Jalen Green because you have a Devin Booker, or there's no other third team out there that you could potentially reroute him to, you want the bulk of your draft picks. You want guys like Tari and Jabari that can come in and play around a Devin Booker. Maybe a guy like Dylan Brooks that's a tough guy, gritty. He improved as a 3-point shooter. If you're Phoenix and the offer is Dylan Brooks and filler and draft picks, that's an underwhelming offer if I'm Phoenix, right? This is a guy in Kevin Durant who is going to be a Hall of Famer. He's still producing at this level in his career. I think he averaged 26. He scored 45% on catch and shoot threes this season. He's a guy that still can step in right now and elevate any team in the league. So if you're Phoenix, I do understand why you want to get the best deal possible. The problem that you're going to run into is that you are walking a tightrope here. Like we've seen this so many times in the NBA with stars that have come out and say, I want to go X, I don't want to go Y. And if you send me to team Z, I'm not going to commit long-term. That makes things pretty hard in terms of trying to figure out like negotiations. Is a team going to be aggressive enough? Kind of like we saw with the Raptors and Kawhi a couple of years back, where they knew that Kawhi didn't want to go to Toronto, but they pulled the trigger anyway. They won a championship and he bounced, right? So that's a lucky case because they won a ring, but had KD not gotten hurt, ironically enough, that year, the Raptors probably won the championship, and then all that ends up being for nothing. So this is a really unique holding pattern that we're seeing around the league. And until one of those guys blinks in terms of KD maybe saying, okay, I'll go to Minnesota, or a team saying I'll put more pieces in the deal, I think we're going to be in a pretty tough spot heading into the draft.
I want Will to speak on this because he's talked about it on Twitter, and I've talked to him about this. But say Minnesota, and there was a tweet today that said the offer was Rudy Gobert, DiVincenzo, and or Terrence Shannon Jr. and Rob with some picks. Will has said this, and I agree with him. Minnesota is not a good team if they trade for KD and make that offer.
Yeah, I did want to speak about that because part of the problem, I think that I'm not going to say that it would be done, but I think that there would be more teams that are closer to getting the deal done if Kevin Durant was willing to commit long term to more teams. Like Shams and
sure.
reported that it's just Houston, San Antonio, and Miami that he's willing to commit long term to. Even though like Minnesota, Toronto, somebody that chat's been floating out there, same thing. Like there's other teams out there that have registered interest in KD, but it's difficult. For example, the Timberwolves to say I'm willing to trade away that much for a guy who at the end of the year is just going to walk. And like, I'm not it's not a Timberwolves podcast, so I won't go into like why I think that's a bad trade for Minnesota. But yeah, like if you're giving up a defensive player of the year caliber starting center, I think they said like Dante DiVincenzo's in that trade. Right. He's another guy who he's not a star or nothing, but DiVincenzo was an NBA player on all 30 teams in the NBA. Like he probably started a couple of them, right? That's a really solid NBA player. You're giving up Rob Dillingham or Terrence Shannon. These are, Rob Dillingham's a guy who you traded 2 first-round picks just last year to move up in the draft to get.
Yeah.
They're giving, and they would also be giving up, I believe it was like pick 17 or 19, somewhere in that ballpark. Not like a mid first round pick. That's a lot to give up for a guy who at the end of the year is going to leave, and that's assuming he even shows up and puts in full effort. From the jump, we've seen. I'm not saying KD's his guy. We've seen example. I mean, James Harden's on our team. We've seen guys who come in and don't take it seriously because they don't want to be there.
Yep.
And so that's a lot to give up if you don't have the assurance that KD wants to be there and he will be there long term. And if you don't have that insurance, to me, I think it doesn't make any sense at all to offer that much. I think you'd be smarter to either keep this asset or pivot it somewhere else as opposed to trading it for an aging superstar who only will be there for a year. And, that's assuming he's healthy or whatnot. There's a whole bunch that goes into that. So, I think that's one of the biggest reasons why the trade hasn't gone through. Because I think if he was going to play in Minnesota, I think it'd be done. If I was the Suns, I'd accept that trade.
If you guys are in Houston's shoes right now, what is your aggression level in terms of seeing what you've already built, right?
Mm-hmm.
Theoretically or hypothetically imagining, a top 5 defense with a Kevin Durant, having seen what happened in the playoffs. What is your aggression level in terms of if you know that acquiring KD can now give you a title window of maybe 2 years, maybe 3 years, like assuming all those pieces are in place, like Ime, Fred, all those guys, and you add KD to the mix. How aggressive or how much are you willing to risk, taking the plunge? Because this is one of the greatest players of all time.
Yes. And I'll say this. I know people are going to say, yeah, he's the greatest player of all time, but he's 36, 37. He just averaged 26 points a game on a 64 true shooting percentage. 12 straight year, by the way, averaging 25 on 62 shooting percentage. That's the longest streak in NBA history. Yeah, he's insane. So KD is still very much KD. Not the exact same KD, but he's still a bucket. So, yes, how aggressive would I be in this trade? I'll say this. For one, I am for Kevin Durant trade. Of course, price dependent. I ideally would want to give up one young core guy, one pick, and fillers. That's probably what the Rockets are doing right now, and I don't know if that gets the job done. I personally want to keep a lot of these young guys on the roster. Kelly mentioned it. They want Tari Eason, they want Jabari, maybe Reed. I really like Jabari Smith Jr. He, out of anybody from that young core, him and Shanky, when they both came to play, like he looked ready for the moment. I know he's a role player, and he didn't have a huge role, but that's a guy who he just turned 22, right? Yeah, he just turned 22. That's a guy long term who can be really good. And Houston this past year, I have to double check the stat, but I'm pretty sure they were 18-3 when he came off the bench after Amin got the starting role. So they were hooping, and this is depth. Like in today's NBA, depth is so important. So I don't want to lose Jabari, but it's tough. It's tough. I really do want Kevin Durant.
There's a package, like if you think it's too much, like on paper, Dylan, Jabari, all Dylan, Jabari, Cam, Reed. But that's a lot of. You're sacrificing a lot of.
That's
depth.
too much for me. I don't know. If
Houston, are you ready to risk losing those number of guys for 2 years of Kevin Durant? Like it's a tough ask. It's a tough ask.
I think Houston's in a position where they don't need to be too aggressive. Because again, they're not the team that doesn't have leverage. Phoenix has no leverage. And they're desperate. Someone like, please, someone take this. Or someone offer us this. Like the Rockets are cool. They chilling. Like at the end of the day, we still have your picks, 25, 27, 29. And we're going to keep banking on that. We're not going to budge. So I don't think they need to be too aggressive. And even if they're not aggressive, another star will be there next offseason. Potentially Giannis. So I wouldn't do too much. Will, what would you say?
I think you hit the nail on the head, given the fact that a lot of the leverage is in KD's camp right now, especially because of the impending, contract extension. If you trade for KD, you have to more or less immediately extend him. And so given that, and then also given the fact that the Rockets did just win 52 games, and that was without Kevin Durant, and that was off the backs of a bunch of guys who aren't even remotely close to their primes, right? So it's definitely within like the realm of outcomes to keep the core intact, make some margin moves, and just go into next season and say, all right, we made some margin moves. Our guys are a year older. They got some playoff experience. Like, we think we can be better just off of the internal growth of that alone. Right. I don't think this team needs KD. I think this team wants KD. And I think KD makes this team really, really good. I think he addresses a lot of the.
That's a good
thing. Yeah, I think he addresses a lot of the problems that we have with the roster last year. And I think he's also somebody who can aid the development of our young guys and complement them in ways that we were not able to complement them last year. So given that, I'm not about to break anything close to the bank for KD. Like I think the way the Rockets are playing it right now, where they have their set price and they're not budging from it, that's what I would do. I would say, if that's not enough, good luck to you in Minnesota. Good luck to you in Miami or wherever else he ends up at. Good luck. I mean, obviously wish him well. But what we have going on in Houston at 152 games, unless something drastic happens, knock on wood, like, these guys are going to get better, right? So it should be, may not necessarily result in more wins, but it should result in a better team next season. So, like, I don't need to be desperate for KD. So, like, my aggression level is where it is right now. I have a set offer, and I might wiggle, a piece here. Like, I might, I might play ball with you a little bit, but I'm not about to give you anything even resembling what they gave up to get KD in the first place.
Yeah, that's not happening. Yeah, that's not happening.
Oh, and then somebody said, somebody in the comments asked, I don't know if y'all want that.
I'll click on it. Which one is it?
Yeah, somebody asked, I don't know where to find it, but basically, will we trade for? Yeah, it is. Will we trade for Devin Booker? Will we be more aggressive? And real quick, I don't think Booker's available this summer. It sounds like that's not going to happen. But if he was, that's the kind of guy I would be aggressive for. I would offer a bit more for Book, because he's a bit younger. He's under contract, and he has the potential to grow with our team, as opposed to KD, who's going to be here for like 1-2 years, and he's on or maybe 2-3 years, and he's on an expiring deal. So that's just my quick rundown on that one.
Yeah, I wanted to ask. So, if let's say the firm pick is Jalen, Landale, Holiday, and that number 10 pick. And Kelly, really quick, you could confirm that trade does work, right? If you waive the bird rights to Jeff Green,
if you waive his bird rights,
it's cap hold
with Jalen plus Jock.
Yeah, it's cap hold. My apologies.
Yeah, it should work. You might have to add
the trade machine lets it work. So I don't know.
That should be good. Yeah. That should be good. But if I'm
and go ahead. I was gonna say, see, Andy said the Suns laughed that away, and I'm sure they are right now. So what would you add? If you're not trying to add another piece,
if you're the Rockets, right, and there is a level where the Suns will do business, if you're not going to give them, because you control their picks 25, 27, you have the swap right in 29. Naturally, a team that's going to the Suns have been really confusing in terms of, they say this time a year ago, they said that 29 teams would envy their position, right? Mm-hmm. That clearly wasn't the case. Now they're entering a phase where they want to be competitive. They want to sign Devin Booker to a massive extension. They want to still remain in the thick of things, because they only missed the playoffs, but the play-in by about like 5 games, right? Right. You can argue that if things go a bit differently, they could have been in the play-in, and who knows what happens in the playoffs, right? But if you're the Rockets, what is the opportunity cost of not getting KD? Like, put yourself back in Houston's shoes in April. If they have KD with that team, are they beating the Warriors in 7?
Yes.
Some people will say yes. Some people will say, maybe things go a bit differently. You never know. Like, NBA is a game of chances at the end of the day. So if I'm Houston personally, I'm trying to figure out how to get a third team involved so I can keep as many assets as possible. I don't want to lose those guys. That, like, for example, Rafael, like, there's a certain bond that he has with Jalen. Like, he's the guy that scouted him. He drafted him. He wants him to become this great NBA player, right? And if it works out, you see the love that guys like Sam Presti gets because of the talent acquisition and the talent development. That's along the similar veins that the Rockets kind of see things. Like, they're not an OKC in terms of they don't have a Shea, right? But there are some similarities in terms of how they've been built. Right? They've been patient. They've built through the draft, and at some point you need a certain bit of luck, and you need, maybe Alp takes a massive leap, maybe Jalen takes a massive leap, but until you get to that point, this has only been 2 years in the Ime experience. Right? This is If we're talking this is year 4 and there's still a first round out, then yeah, I think that's the time where you kind of consolidate your pieces and push things to the middle. But if I'm the Rockets and I'm talking about how to make Jalen Green a better player, I'm getting an example that he can be in the locker room with every day, one of the greatest players to ever lace up these sneakers and get on the floor, in Kevin Durant. I want him to play with Jalen if I'm the Rockets. I don't want to even that kind of substitution, because you never know if Jalen goes to Phoenix or wherever. Who knows what happens in year 5? Yeah, you may average 25, 5, and 5, and then the Rockets will be looking like egg on the face because they were, enticed by 2 years of Kevin Durant. And we're still talking about a guy that has some injury history. Like this is still Kevin Durant at the end of the day, yes, but he's not without fault in terms of his availability, and that's a big risk, especially for a Rockets team that's been relatively healthy the last 2 years. And there's so many different factors when it comes to these kind of trades, and that's why you see teams kind of hesitant. And because KD is so, if KD was 29, this would have been a no-brainer.
We would have threw.
The Spurs wouldn't be playing 29-year-old KD.
It would have been done 2 weeks ago, right?
Yeah.
Or even gone to that point. It would have been some off the wall type of. But he's 36. Like he's not a spring chicken anymore. You have to kind of really evaluate things. You have the draft coming up too. Like Ime's only playing 8 or 9 guys as it is. Like, what's to say that if you consolidate your depth, you're able to still have that same level of, talent from top to bottom? That's one thing that they've been able to rely on over the last couple of years is that 1 through 8, 1 through 9 guys on the roster. And this is an imperfect team. They're still going to have court. They're not a great shooting team. We saw that against the Warriors, but that's what development is for. That's what improvement is all about. You have to go through those experiences to kind of understand what needs to be fixed, corrected, how to address it, how to improve on it, and you get back to the drawing board. Like, I think the Rockets will be in a smarter position to wait until February and kind of survey the landscape of the NBA, because it happens every year. There's going to be a star that becomes disgruntled, someone that's available, and you still have all the assets on the table to go in if a star is available. Like, who knows what happens with Jaylen Brown, 3 months from now? Who knows what happens with Porzingis or any of these guys? Like, you have to be flexible if you're Houston, and if you make a move too early, you run the risk of hemming yourself up. So I think patience for them is going to be key.
Yeah. Go ahead, Will.
I want to respond to something that Eco said. The Kevin Durant and Jalen Green part. Full disclosure, I'm not the biggest on Jalen Green right now. I think we kind of talked about that a little bit last week. My thoughts on that situation. But what I will say, and I think Kelly made a good point, is that if there is anybody in the league who can figure out how to get Jalen Green to that level that they thought they were getting when they drafted him, I think it is Kevin Durant. I think being able to learn from Kevin Durant every day in practice, see how he takes care of his body, see how he prepares for the game, the approach he has before game, different stuff like that. The things that, like, with all due respect, utmost respect, honestly, to like Fred VanVleet, Dylan Brooks, Jeff Green, lesser degree Jock Landale, like the vets we brought in 2023, those guys have been amazing for us. I think that part of why we were able to, not even part of, a huge reason for why we are in the position we're in right now is because of their leadership, their mentorship, what they brought to the team on and off the court. None of those guys know what it's like to be a superstar in the league, right? Fred VanVleet's a great player. He's been a great mentor for Jalen, but he's never been a superstar. He's never been the focal point of a team. Kevin Durant has been in the league for, 16, 17 years, somewhere in that ballpark now. He's been a superstar for about 15 of those 17 years. He knows what it takes to be a superstar, to play at that level for a long period of time. And so if there's anybody who could pass that knowledge on to someone else and be like, all right, look, we're going to get in the gym. We're going to work this out. This is the approach you got to have to the game. Pick your spots here. I think it is Kevin Durant. So if you are somebody who's like, I want to try. Yeah, you can try to make the trade work with like Dylan and Jabari, right? That financially can get it done. You got to throw in like Landale and Holiday and stuff like that, right? Probably
Yep.
3rd or 14th, right? So now you do keep Jalen, and you like I said, you have Kevin Durant with Jalen Green every day in practice, every day watching film. They're playing the games together, right? Katie's going to relieve some of that defensive attention from Jalen. If there's anybody who can get it, I think it's KD. So I think that would be one of the benefits if we do, land Kevin Durant while also maintaining Jalen Green.
Yeah. I 100% agree. I was going to say really quick, appreciate you guys. We're about halfway through the episode, 150 in the live so far. So much love to y'all. If y'all haven't subbed yet, definitely make sure to do so. I was going to comment on, what you guys were saying. I really agree with, the take that the Rockets, again, they don't need to be too aggressive to get KD. I like what Kelly said. Yeah. Come February, right? Say the KD thing doesn't come to fruition for the Rockets. They have all the assets in the world. Stone did a good job getting those Phoenix picks. They're still going to have all of those. You still have these young guys if you bring them all back. We can see what happens comes February. Who's available? There's always a new wave of stars, and especially in this new CBA where it's hectic and people are flipping like crazy. There's always going to be a new wave of players available. Right. So you definitely don't want to force anything. I thought Kelly made a great point with that. So I wanted to bring it up. But yeah, did y'all want to say anything else on the KD front? This is moving. We get new news cycles every day on this KD stuff.
So. It's happening every day, man. It's
somebody. They've been asking about the Toronto trade in the comments of where I think it's like 2 of Quickly, Jakob Poeltl, RJ Barrett, and I can't remember the other guy who's in, and then like pick 9.
I saw that too. Yeah. I think Gambo has been saying that. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it comes down to, once again, is KD gonna go play in Toronto? Is he willing to sign an extension with Toronto? Is he gonna go play in that cold city? And no disrespect to any Raptors fans who were gonna see this. I don't think
that's a nasty offer. We can say that. That's a nasty offer.
Yeah,
I agree.
You can say that. It's okay.
I feel like KD probably doesn't want to go to Toronto, especially considering how far away they are. Because where did they finish last season? I know they were kind of banged up.
They won less than 30, I believe, right? They were.
Let me look it up. The NBA app. But bottom line is, I'm gonna look it up for y'all. But I would imagine they probably weren't too high at Eastern Conference. They were the 11th. They won 30 games.
They did win 30.
Right, you drop Kevin Durant on that team. You stay healthy. I mean, that's 45 win team maybe. But
the East is open, but it's not that open where Toronto.
Yeah, right. It's like if I'm KD, because where he lands right now is probably where he's going to retire. Do I want to retire?
That's what he wants for sure.
In Toronto, when I probably don't have a solid chance to win a ring.
You got to think about the taxes too. Like
that's too. Yeah.
He's trying to cash in on his last couple years. I don't want to go to Canada.
And that's what 120 mil, right? 2 years, 120 mil is what he's trying to get in the extension.
Yeah, something in that range. Like
the CP3 rule.
Probably like 80. That's taxes and everything. So
so he wants. That's why Miami, Houston, San Antonio, all those.
No income tax. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So
yeah, go ahead. Well, you were saying though.
Oh no, I was done. That was all I was gonna say. It's just I just kind of don't see why, if I'm Kevin Durant, I'm spending the last a lot, because I'm not gonna say he has to agree to a trade. Phoenix can always just say, forget what you're talking about. I'm gonna just send you there. But if I'm Toronto, am I about to give up pick 9? Which by the way, I don't know if I keep up with the draft, but it sounds like I'm probably gonna mispronounce his name, but Kaman Malawatch, the Duke center, it sounds like he has somewhat of a promise from them at 9 if he's there. I think they really like him. He fits a lot of higher than that. Yeah, he probably will. But I'll say he fits a lot of what Toronto looks for in draft prospects and players they trade for. Am I about to pass up the opportunity to draft somebody like that? Am I about to get rid of, some of these guys who, not necessarily be like stars with them, but these are rotation guys. Am I about to give these guys up for a year of KD? And, maybe if you're Toronto, maybe you want to sell jerseys, maybe you don't care. But I'd imagine that's probably not the type of smart resource allocation you should be doing it, especially when you're that far away. It's not like they have a puncher's chance of winning the ring like what they did when they got Kawhi. They're pretty far away. So I don't know if that makes sense for them.
Yeah, and I'll say this, great mention that they also do have Brandon Ingram, who they traded for, didn't play any games. I still don't think that moves the needle in the East for a KD trade. That's
I just forget BI is there, but I'm not. It's too many. Now, I will say that BI and KD is pretty interesting, but then you
It's
still
like
got
it's like a
factor
2K
Scotty.
team.
You got to fact, yeah, it's like that rec team you get on with
Right.
two randoms, and you got Scotty Barnes, and you just got to figure it out.
There's no
But I
guard
mean,
play.
yeah,
Yeah.
I don't think, it wouldn't move the needle enough. Like you said, like there's still Indiana, it's still Cleveland, still got to deal with those guys. So I don't. If I'm them now, Orlando's in the mix now. So if I'm Toronto, I'll just be patient and build through the draft.
Agree. Last thing I'll say, I got not 9. He's asking Kelly, man, when do you think a trade's going down? He did mention, new news cycle every day. You never really know. But go ahead, Kel.
Personally, I think something gets done either on draft day or like right before. Just because you understand at some point Phoenix is being stubborn, but they're still bringing in guys for draft evaluations. They're still operating under the assumption that they're going to have, a pick to make,
Right.
maybe multiple. So it just comes down to what they think their realistic timeline is. If that involves bringing a player in the draft, because they still have Ryan Dunn, they still have Oso Iguodala, like they drafted last season. Do you want to bring in more of those kinds of players in terms of around Devin Booker? Is that what Devin Booker actually wants? Because you have to still commit him to signing a long-term deal, right? Like you're still not there yet, even though you want to. You've publicly said this is the guy that I want to keep around for a long time. There are still steps to actually getting him to sign those papers. So, I think the league understands that the Suns want to accelerate things and get this thing done before the draft. So I do think at some point both sides will come to some agreement because everyone's being stubborn right now. They're in their feelings, but it's not gonna last forever. So personally, I think something happens right before the draft.
I don't know how much stock y'all put in. I think his name is Gambo, the Suns guy.
Suns guy.
Yeah,
I don't know. He's legit. Gambo's legit.
Yeah. Okay, so I was because he said he thinks a trade gets done this week, and then he also said, or not. I don't know if he said this, but I know one thing that people have been saying, and it makes sense to me, is that if you are the Suns, right, it sounds like a lot of, or one of the things that's going to be going in this trade to you could be pick 9 from the Raptors, pick 10 from the Rockets, pick 14 from the Spurs, right? Or what I mean. I think the Timberwolves have a pick in this year's draft. If you're going to pick in this year's draft, you probably want to work out some guys and figure out, if anything else, like have your scouting department zeroed in on guys who are going to be in the range that you're picking. You kind of need to know where you're going to pick to do that. And so I'd imagine that they probably want to get this done sooner than later because that'll give them the time.
You don't want to drag out.
Yeah, you can evaluate the prospect, give them a thorough run over, and make sure you understand who you're drafting. But I don't know. Like I said, that's just kind of what it is.
I do agree with that. And that's why that report came out a while back that they wanted to get this done as soon as possible so they can get to these draft interviews. And they obviously don't have a pick. So got to find out where they're picking to move forward with that. But
that was funny, man.
Yeah, we're going to see what happens with this KD stuff. It might get done tomorrow. Who knows? But we'll have the update for sure in the next episode next week. But yeah, like I said, we did a Q&A this week to see you guys' questions. We have all that stuff. And really quick, we'll skim past some cool news we got. I didn't know the news could break this soon on Steven Adams coming to Houston, but he signed 3 years, $39 million, declining contract, fully guaranteed, 14 the first year, 13 the second, and around 12-ish on the last year, 2027, 2028. So, man, go around the room. I'm happy Steve O's coming back. That double big lineup was killing. Did you even think it was going to break this soon?
Yeah. I mean, obviously, this was the number one thing on their list to do, of the priority list. Just because, going back to what I said earlier, like just the importance that he showed late in the year and how that impression was left on the coaching staff in terms of this dual big lineup and how productive it can be over a regular season. Like, forget the playoffs. Like, that was great to see for them in the playoffs. But if you're Houston, you're thinking, okay, if we use this lineup more, we might go from 52 wins to 58, 59, 60. Agreed. Like, you never know. Like, and that big delta of a change is what led those guys to believe that Steven still has some years left under his belt. He's still healthy. He's healthy now. He's productive.
Yeah.
Get that thing signed and then see, what comes next. Now, the question that I have is how do you combine that approach with the spacing concerns and the speed at which you want to play?
Yeah.
Ime's always been a big proponent of playing dual bigs, like we saw with Al Horford and Robert Williams, but he's also been a big believer in small ball.
Mm-hmm.
And coming into this past year, there was this huge thought that Ime was going to have this super lineup of Jabari at the 5 and with speed and highlighting Jabari's skill set. That didn't really come to play a lot. And once they figured out what they had in Steven and Alpi, that plan kind of fell by the wayside because when you go back to the playoffs, Jabari was the one guy I thought that could create a shot at any time against, the Warriors zone. And he was efficient enough to make them pay from the nail, from the slot. Like, he was the guy that I thought would get a lot of more touches. So now that you have Steven for the long haul, I'm curious to see how Ime goes about, his rotations and if he's going to lean into more of those powerful, those big laps, because Jabari playing the back line of that zone with Steven and Alpi, and it's a lot of things to sort through. I think it's a good signing for the money, good signing for the money, but I just think that there are more things you have to dive into if you're Houston's coaching staff to see how to get the most efficient uses of everybody.
Yeah, so 12-4 when they started using that Steven Adams lineup with Alperen Sengun against the Pacers. Like, that's how dominant they were. And then you mentioned like they've been good with Jabari at small ball. You can go back to March, what was it, 2024 when they went on that huge run. They looked that good. We're playing small ball, so I am curious to see what Ime does as well. It's probably matchup dependent, I would say. But yeah, if you're going to be playing Steve with those extended minutes, I'd be curious to see where your other forwards, get those extended minutes as well.
Not for sure.
But yeah, it's a good problem to have. Again, 12-4 when Steve was running double big. So this Rockets team is going to win that many more games, in my opinion, just being able to run that to their strength. Well, Williams looks like, I'm cool. I don't need to talk on this. So we can jump to the questions.
He's a big Steve-O. He's a big Steve-O
I'll
guy.
say, I didn't know if y'all were done talking. With Steven Adams coming back, I'll just say this. I don't know if y'all been watching the finals a lot, but a huge part of defense is just securing a defensive rebound. That's one of the most important parts of playing defense is, can you stop your opponent from getting a second or third try at it? And I've been rooting for the Pacers. I don't really want to see OKC win a ring, so I have vested interest in the Pacers winning. And part of the reason why the Pacers lost yesterday and are down 3-2 in the series, they don't secure defensive rebounds a lot. Miles Turner, I don't know how many rebounds he's averaging for the series, but
he's been quiet this series.
It's not a lot. It's not a lot of rebounds, right? They've been surprisingly better with Obi Toppin at the 5, and I think he's like 6'9". So what I'm saying, like they don't have that much size out there. And they're a part of I watched the game yesterday. OKC got a lot of second chance opportunities. Yeah, and that they lost. I think it was like 12, 13, 14 points. But like that adds up, right? That's part of what adds up over the long run of the game, why you weren't able to win the game. And that's a problem that the Rockets seldomly have because we have two bigs who do rebound. Yep. And then when we put them both on the court at the same time, we get all the rebounds. Yeah. And so like just having that luxury now that we can, for a 48-minute game, I don't have to worry about, is my big going to get a rebound? I know we do. And I know we'll have that for not just this season, but the season after that. So I think that was a good signing or re-signing, I guess.
Yeah, I'll say this really quickly. I know I'm a numbers guy. So yeah, they got 68% of total boards running double big, 47% they were getting on the defensive glass, 85% on the offensive glass. Like, it's pure domination. So they, as you mentioned, they're going to be able to get all those rebounds. It's a key part of basketball, of course. We'll kick it to the questions though. Will's going to be reading them, so we'll kick it to Will and see what y'all had to say.
This is probably a question for Kelly, but I feel like it's kind of a foregone
No, it's
conclusion.
for all of us. It's for everybody.
Yeah, no, my fault, everybody. But you know what I'm saying? He the guy who got the hashtag sources. This James Ernest Adams says, is it a foregone conclusion that Tilman is willing to pay the $120 million extension for Kevin Durant? So open the room up to that.
That's a good question.
That's a good question. Yeah.
That is a great question. I would imagine, given how much they've been willing to invest, I think they're probably gonna be a luxury tax team, and they're gonna pay the luxury tax this season. But if it came down to acquiring a Kevin Durant, I don't think that Tilman would be opposed to paying that. It's just because you understand the commercial value of it from a fan standpoint. The fans are going to flock to these games. They're going to buy his jersey. He's going to be in the commercials, all that stuff.
Right.
That's going to pay off on the court as well in terms of ticket sales going up and the team's success, which is going to, for them, parlay into, playoff appearances, the revenue in April, May, potentially June. And I think that's just the cost of doing business. If you want to acquire a NBA great, you're going to have to pay up. And the cap is going to jump up next summer. So the $60 million a year, although it sounds crazy right now, it might not be as crazy when you see some of those deals that come out a year from now. So I do think that it's wise if your ownership, if you were to get, because he's already expressed that he's willing to commit long term to Houston, or San Antonio, wherever.
Yeah,
it's a no brainer if you're Houston, like you want to sign that guy, and you already in your mind said this is your 2-year, 3-year title window. Whatever happens, screw it. But as long as you have Kevin Durant on that roster, you're going to have a chance at winning a basketball game, combined with that elite defense and stuff like that. So if your ownership, I don't see why you wouldn't want to pay. I mean, obviously, if he misses half the season with a knee injury, then you kind of reassess things at that point. But on paper, no, it seems like a no-brainer for me.
Yeah, and I'll say this really quick. Maybe KD takes less with no state income tax. Yeah, he's taking all that. He's taking all that money.
That's not happening.
He's taking all that.
It's not happening.
He's taking the full. Yeah. I say this: if you make the trade for KD, I feel like
I don't think that's gonna happen.
It would be. Yeah, if you make the trade for KD, it's almost a given. You're giving him that extension of the 120 for 2 years. And Kelly mentioned it might not sound as crazy in a few years. It's wild to think we're not too far from those $100 million contracts coming out soon.
Yeah,
per year. Well, one of these years is gonna happen.
That share extension is gonna hit like crack.
I want to say, did y'all see that? What was that SGA extension? It was like 80-ish million last year. Did y'all see that?
It's gonna be something. He'll probably re-up again if they win the chat. Like, what are you gonna do?
Yeah, you can't do nothing about that. Damn. But yeah, Will, what were your thoughts? Obviously, you pay that. You give him that amount. I know Tilman is the question, but you got to throw KD.
I mean, I don't think you make the trade unless you plan to extend him, and I think that's part of why he's not going to be as expensive as what a 27 point per game scorer on that efficiency is. Typically going to go for. So I think it's kind of a foregone conclusion if he's on this roster that an extension will be discussed at some point in time. I don't know if it happens the same day we get him, but I'd assume that there is a mutual understanding between Kevin Durant's camp and the Rockets that an extension is going to be worked out at some point in time before Kevin Durant hits free agency. Because I feel like you wouldn't trade for him if you were just cool with it being for a year. And then I know people are kind of scared of that amount of money, but I mean, Kevin Durant is 27 points per game, I think, on 64 true shooting, which is crazy.
You sign up for that 10 times out of 10.
He's still arguably a top 10 player in the league. And it's not like we're giving him that money for 5 years. It will be for 2 years. So maybe you have to eat a bad contract for a year, worst case scenario, but
they've done it before. So
I was gonna say, man, I think I would like my chances because, like I said, it's not like KD's game is gonna age badly either, right? He's knock on wood, of course, but he's somebody who I feel like even if you take away his athleticism, he's still gonna be able to knock down a catch and shoot three. He's still gonna be able to hit the pull up midi, hit the fadeaway. Like that's a skill. Like he tore his Achilles and came back.
Achilles,
Or everything.
Efficiency wise, it's gotten better, which is absurd.
Yeah, like you're not. That's inhuman. That's a career-ending injury for like 90% of guys, and because his game is just so predicated on just being more skilled than the next person, it really didn't bother him. So I think his game's gonna age well.
Yeah, we can get to the next topic. I'll say this on the KD front. Will you talk about the middies? Yeah, 53% last year on the middies. Best in the NBA by far. Yeah, so he's not getting anywhere. So you pay him that money. But yeah, what is our next question, Will?
Actually might be in here. Shetman asked, say they do send out Fred for KD, which they're probably not going to do. Who is the PG that would fill his role, because the free agent market isn't looking great for PGs? And I threw this question in because I think we should talk a bit about Fred, his role, and probably why he's not going to get moved this summer.
I'll say this again. Fred VanVleet, the guy it goes without saying, we can all say he's a stabilizer, sets everybody up. He's the one feeding out P the Rock. And as soon as he goes down after an extended period with him being out there, the team can look lost, which is not ideal. And Will tweeted out today. I think, Will, you correct me if I'm wrong. You said you'd be okay with moving off from Fred, but there has to be a plan. And you also mentioned Amin, and as much as we love them, Amin and Reed are not ready to take over the reins just yet at point guard. And I do agree with that. But yeah, Fred is very important to this team. Kelly spoke about it in the first episode. Again, he could be inefficient at times. For the most part, he's very inefficient last year. But he is very important for this team offensively, getting them all set. And he's the coach on the court, as everyone always says. So they're not ready to move on from him just yet because the team is lost without him. I'd like to see them mature to the point where they don't need him anymore. But that's my take. I don't know what the options are, and that's why that was a good question by our guy.
That's a great question. So I'll put it. There's two ways to look at this. So if you view a man as a play initiator, as opposed to a wing, like from the guard position, as opposed to a wing creator, then you slot a man at point guard. If you see Reed as the guy that you want to commit a bunch of time and resources to, then you probably give Reed a shot at point guard and see, how that looks like, in an 82 game setting. Now, is he ready for that? I don't know. I mean, there have been games that he started, like the Clippers game late last year, where he looked fantastic. Looked poised, control. The 3-point shooting was there. The playmaking was there. The overall efficiency was there. Can you extrapolate that over an entire year? That's the whole point of why the coaching staff is so enamored with the idea of playing Shepherd more, because of what he can bring. And coming out of college, you saw exactly why teams were really essentially salivating over his skill set, right? So if a hypothetical where you were to move Fred for a Kevin Durant deal, I think they would be okay in terms of they would suffer in their overall organization. There's some things that Fred does that you just can't replicate. And having that level of poison control is an unspoken benefit. But if it means that a man becomes a lead ball handler or a Reed, and I think at some point you would figure it out. It might sting in the interim because of what Fred has done over the last 2 years. But I think at some point because KD is also a quality playmaker himself. It's not like he's just a standstill guy. Like he averaged 4.5, 4 or 5 assists a game for his career. Like this is a guy that can also create plays for others if it comes down to it. And you still have Şengün, who you probably want to go play through more anyway. There are ways around it. It's just like, given what we've seen over the last 2 years, this team needs Fred. So until we see a world where he's absent for a while and they're playing at a high level without him, I think you're always going to want to have Fred on that team.
Potato head, not too much on Sean, by the way, but go ahead, Will.
I'll say people are probably not gonna like me saying this, but I'll say I think that Fred, despite his overall stat line, wasn't the greatest last year, I still think that he is incredibly important to this team on the simple, and it's not including any of the off-court things or any of the locker room, the team huddles, right? The leadership intangibles that you can't quantify with stats, or like you can't quantify with the film. We don't have one person on this team not named Fred VanVleet that can consistently deal with ball pressure. There's not one guy not named Fred. Jalen Green can't do it. Amin Thompson can't do it. Reed Shepard can't do it. Right? You could, bring in KD and he could, try to do some ball handling duties. But at the end of the day, bro, he's 7 feet tall.
Yeah.
It's only so much you can do trying to be point guard at 7 feet tall.
Yeah.
Balls traveling a bit higher to you. And on top of it, I think part of the appeal of getting KD would be to kind of lessen his load so that he doesn't have to do as much and he can just focus on scoring 30 a night, right? Like you would want him to focus more on scoring, and we'll say, all right, we'll take care of the defense, we'll take care of the rebounding, right? We're just going to set you at the score as efficient as you can. So I don't want him having to worry about playing point guard for the Rockets. That's not his job. That never has been, never will be. Fred is the only guy on this team who can consistently deal with ball pressure. If we trade Fred away, what is the plan for when we play OKC, right? When they have Alex Caruso and Lou Dort and Jalen Williams, all those other guys out there. When those guys start harassing our ball handlers, what's the plan? We play Minnesota, and they have Alexander Walker and Ant and Jaden McDaniels. There's all teams out there that have a lot of guys who are POA who harass the ball. What's the plan? Because I love Amin Thompson, I love Reed Shepard. I think those guys are gonna be great one day. Right now, Amin Thompson's handle is not there to deal with ball pressure for a full 48-minute game. You can get away with it in spurts, but if he's your only ball handler or he's your primary, I think you're gonna struggle to get into your sets.
Yeah.
Same thing with Reed. Reed, he was a rookie, didn't play last year. I think handing the keys over to a guy who didn't play at all last year of a 52-win team, probably not the smartest idea in the world. And I know some people are like, we should just live with the growing pains. I don't know about y'all. I kind of want to. I like winning 52 games.
I enjoy it too.
I want to win more. Right?
I
want to go to the conference finals next year. You know what I'm saying? I didn't like losing in round one.
Yeah.
And I think it's also kind of unfair to the other guys of the team. I think it's unfair to like Şengün or Jabari or any of the other guys we keep on this team to say, all right, we're gonna put you in a position where your point guard may not be able to dribble. Right? Just figure it out. Like, that's kind of unfair to those guys. They've been here. We're trying to win. And I think there's nothing wrong with just saying we're going to bring these guys in, and when they're ready for the job, fine. I think one of the beautiful parts about Fred VanVleet is you're not married to him. You can move if you want to. Like if a man's ready, right? Fred can transition to the bench role, or maybe he gets traded, right? Maybe he can go.
Yeah.
Versus if you do go out there and you trade a lot of assets for a point guard, that's your point guard, right? Like that's who's going to be on your team. If we went out there and got De'Aaron Fox, you know what I'm saying? Like there's no pivot from De'Aaron Fox. That's your point guard. And so like I think that if we're going to trade Fred VanVleet, right? I think he's incredibly important for this team. But if you tell me you want to trade Fred VanVleet, that's fine by me. You have to just tell me what the plan is to bring in someone who can deal with ball pressure. And like I saw somebody say like Chris Paul. I'm not bringing in 42-year-old Chris Paul, man. I'm not bringing in Tyus Jones. Like if you don't like Fred VanVleet, you're not going to like Tyus Jones. You got to tell me what the plan is after we trade Fred. So that's kind of where I'm at with it.
Yeah, we can move on. I'll say last thing on the Fred front. I said it in the first episode, but Fred is at his best when he's not doing way too much. So if we see the leaps necessary, assuming we run it back right, if Jalen's playing like he's supposed to be, or Min's playing like he's supposed to be, Fred is cool being that catch and shoot guy and being the coach on the court. That's
Fred wants to chill.
He does.
Fred wants to chill from October to April. He wants to coast. Like he doesn't want that enormous like task on his back to consistently create every play for those guys. So that's kind of why they brought him in, to teach those guys to do it without him. So like it should be a win-win.
Yeah, really look out for it. Like even the first year Fred was in Houston, like when someone's cooking like Jalen in that March stretch, Fred was cooling. Fred was cooling in the back. Like, okay, Jalen, you got it. He did it this year in January as well. He's cool with just chilling. The guys just got to act like they're ready for the moment. So yeah, I would bring back Fred though. No brainer. I wouldn't even try to bring in a new quarterback for this team. You don't do that. He's running the show. Just bring him back.
Bring in somebody else. Like I said, you can't pivot.
You run the risk of abandoning the harmony that you already created. Yeah.
Yeah, I 100% agree. Let's get to our next question. We're at 55-minute mark of our live show.
Next question, Matthew SB, I think that's how you pronounce this. at the price tag that is being discussed, would it be more interesting to invest in Tre Murphy? And I saw people in the comments were also asking about Tre Murphy.
I've been seeing some Tre Murphy out.
What
Is
is the
that even a
first-
yeah, Cal, this is you almost. Yeah, what you gotta say?
I do like Tre. To me, he's like an upgraded version of what Rockets fans think Jabari is in terms of that super lengthy, two-way guy. Tre has gotten a lot more confident in his offensive arsenal for the last couple of years. A much better ball handler than we give him credit for. Obviously, he's a knockdown shooter. I think he would be tremendous in a Rocket system because of the Rockets just need shooting. They just like
Desperately.
There's an understanding that anybody that comes into this system is going to have to become a better defender, or you're going to be on the bench.
Yeah.
Tre is already a good defender, so that wouldn't be an issue. The problem with that is if you think that the Suns are asking a high price for KD, New Orleans is asking for a boatload for Tre Murphy if it comes down to it. And I don't think the Rockets are in that position to where they think they're a Tre Murphy away from a Western Conference Finals or a second. Like, I don't think they're at that stage yet. Now, if the season starts and he's on fire, and we go back to the February thing, then you kind of revisit those kind of things and say, okay, is this a guy that we want to add to the mix? But at this stage, at this juncture, I'm not looking to poach guys off of a New Orleans team right now. I'm just not if I'm Houston. There are better things to do with my time and my resources than to go see what's going on in the Big Easy.
Go ahead, Will.
So I don't know how reputable this source is, but this was like the aggregated alleged trade package that they wanted for Tre Murphy. It was a veteran, a young prospect, and multiple first-round picks, which
multiple
probably sounds about right, especially considering the Desmond Bane trade that happened Sunday.
Right.
That kind of somewhat set the market for this offseason in terms of what teams are going to be looking for. Obviously, I think Desmond Bane's a better player than Tre Murphy, but you can kind of draw some parallels if that's what a player Desmond Bane's caliber went for. A player who's like maybe a tier or two beneath him in Tre Murphy, you can kind of extrapolate what you think that would be worth. I like Tre Murphy. I think he's young enough to grow with these guys. He fulfills a huge area of need. He's a guy who competes on defense. Everything for me is price dependent. I need to know like what the Pelicans would want from the Rockets, and if that makes sense, and I'd make a move for him. But hey, I'm not breaking the bank for Tre Murphy either, especially like Kelly said. I think he's a great player. I just don't think that like you drop Tre Murphy on this team, are they content? Are they winning the ring? Probably not. And so if I'm going to break the bank, I want it to be for a guy who I'm like, I think I have a really good chance to win the whole thing if I add this guy to my team. And I don't think it's him.
Yeah, I'll say this on the Murphy front. A lot of people don't realize how good he is. He's actually a hooper. Like you can look at his film. Again, I shot him out last week. Brett Usher.
Yeah, he's good. It's great.
Borderline all-star. Bucket, plays defense, all that stuff. But yeah, that being said, I'm not sure the Rockets are even trying to make a move for him at this point. So yeah, I don't even think I would do that. But he is going to be tough in my personal opinion. So that was a good question. I did see we had a Cam Johnson question in the chat. We can run by that really quick. I mean, I've seen people ask Cam Johnson for pick 10. I know Brooklyn inquired. They did call. I did see a report. Brooklyn did call the Rockets about pick number 10 in regard to Cam Johnson. Would Jabari have to be involved in it? I'd imagine.
I think they're similar. They're similar types. So yeah, anybody of those like Cam, Tre Murphy, but like Jabari is going to be the natural ass because of the age and the profile. So yeah, he's going to be that.
Yeah, Cam Johnson is a really good fit. High volume 3-point shooter. Upper with 39%. Average 18 a night for Brooklyn last year. Good defender, 6'9", I believe. Yeah, good fit for pick 10 and Jabari. Me personally, I really like Jabari Smith-Jr. And I know some people tell me, hey, Cam Johnson will never will always be better than the ceiling of Jabari. I personally, I like to hold on to what Jabari does. That's just me. What would y'all say?
No, Jabari's a high ceiling, man. Like I just don't think he was utilized properly. And I think until you see that, that's kind of why there's a reason why this kid was thought as the number one pick coming out of college. Like he was for a long time, a lot of decision makers thought that this was the best prospect that come out of college. Now, obviously, we saw what happened with Ted, we saw what happened with Paolo.
Yeah.
Those are fantastic players, but Jabari was thought of to be right in that mix just because of what he could do on both ends of the floor. So obviously it hasn't panned out probably how he would have thought coming into the NBA. But I think if there's anybody that can bring that greatness out of him, it would be Ime. But you got to play him. Like you can't just stash him at the end of the bench and say, "Come take 3 shots a game." It's not going to happen that way. So there needs to be a plan for him to actually get legitimate touches and development.
That reminds me, we were supposed to talk about what Jabari said in that interview with Ari Alexander. He said he was going to improve everything.
We'll do it next week, man.
Next week, we'll push it to next week. But yeah, Barry did say he was going to try and improve everything next year. We'll dive into that next week. But we are past the hour mark. I want to get to another question that Will had. So Will, I'll kick it back to you.
We can end it. One of the questions that I got, I think it's a good way to end it, was just what are our expectations for next season? Just open like that.
Not the first round. They got to hit. You want to contend, of course. And it is a young team. It kind of depends on what they do. If they run it back, I for sure you have to get past the first round if you run it back. That's just me personally. The second round, again, it depends. It's matchup dependent. But I want to see them contend next year. We're at that point where this team should be close to contending. If you run it back, I can't say they're going to win a title just off of experience alone. It's hard to. But if they go and get a KD guy, a KD caliber player, the expectation is championship, in my opinion, because you don't get a player like that to not win a championship. So that's my take.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Yeah, I think from a wins perspective, I think 56 should be the floor, 56, 58.
I agree.
Just because you're going to bank on natural improvement from those guys. You're going to bank on some of those clutch games that they lost and trying to figure out, how to better navigate those things. Obviously, if you get Kevin Durant, that's going to increase your wins by 4 by itself, just having him there. So yeah, I do think they can't have another one of these first round exits though. Like you said, that's not going to cut it. Mm-hmm. Like it was like this year, like we gave them grace because you went up against a Warriors team that's been there, done that. But you did lose a game 7 on your home floor. That's still you still were the number 2 seed, so you still have to own that part of the mistake. But I do think next season should be a much better in terms of their prospects, outlook, league wide respect, and just overall cachet.
Yeah,
I know that like sometimes teams improve and their record may not get better or improve. So because there's all types of things like injuries that can take place and whatnot that can impact your record. But overall, the team needs to be better. I think a huge benchmark of that is like what Brad said is when they get to the postseason, if we're healthy, we need to get out the first round. And I look at the Western Conference right now. I look like you talk about adding KD to this team. I think we beat the Warriors. I don't think we go to 7 if we have KD on this team against the Warriors, and then that means we're now playing the Timberwolves in the second round, and that was a team I actually thought we matched up well without KD. So now you throw in KD to the mix. I like my chance against Minnesota, and now I'm talking about in the conference finals against OKC. And so like I think that's the mentality you have to have with this roster is like we're a OKC. Obviously we're seeing injuries with nobody, but let's say Jalen Williams comes down with an injury next year and he can't play in the playoffs, right? Or you get a lucky break. They should be looking at like we're a lucky break away from going to the finals and making some noise. And you may not get that far. Obviously, you may stop at the conference finals or somewhere sort of that. But just that mentality, that putting yourself in a position to do that, I think that should be the goal. And then like one of the things I'm really looking forward to seeing next year is just kind of how they plan to integrate Reed Shepherd into the mix, because I think he is somebody who I am decently high on. I think his skill set is that of which we need. There's not that many guys in the league, let alone on this roster, who, but we don't have anybody on our roster, honestly, who's able to hit threes at, ideally hit threes at the clip that Reed can hit threes at, and then run the pick and roll. There's not many guys in the league. There's not a guy on this roster who can do that. And so we're able to see that potential from him. and, develop into that player. That adds a different dynamic to this team. That adds a different layer. And then, like, one of the things I'm really looking forward to seeing next year is just kind of how they plan to integrate Reed Shepherd into the mix, because I think he is somebody who I am decently high on. I think his skill set is that of which we need. There's not that many guys in the league, let alone on this roster, who, there's not that many guys in the league. There's not that many guys in the league. There's not that many guys in the league. There's not one of the guy on this roster who can do that. And so we're able to see that potential from him and develop into that player. That adds a different dynamic to this team. That adds a different that we don't have, and like that's a coveted archetype, man. So like I said, that's not that many guys in the league who can do that. So I'm interested to see how they kind of start bringing that out of reach effort. If that's the plan.
I do agree. Yeah. I'll say this last thing. Expectation wise, I want to see Reed get extended minutes, 20 minutes a night. Hopefully, I know it's going to vary, but I want to see him at least average 20ish a night. Him being a consistent rotational piece, and as Kelly mentioned, floor 56ish wins. It should be able to improve for sure from 52, assuming they stay healthy. And you have Steve-O for the full year with the double big lineup. But yeah, we reached 180 peak. We're actually at 180 right now for the live viewers. So we want to thank you all. That is this episode of the Rockets Collective. I have to run through this outro. I'm still learning. I'm going to read it. So make sure to like, subscribe to the channel, give us 5 stars wherever you listen to the podcast. Our next show is going to be before the NBA draft on Tuesday, June 24th. So definitely tap in. If we have not traded that pick by that point, we will probably go over some of the draft interviews like Carter Bryant and some of those other guys. But we'll see.
Ali Khan will be back next week.
Ali Khan will be back. We'll be back. Shout out Ali Khan. I'll go around the room real quick. Anybody have anything else y'all want to say?
I'll say thank you for tuning in. We're excited to kind of get this thing off the ground. It was a good episode, and hopefully we'll just keep getting better as the weeks go by. So I appreciate y'all.
Yeah, look, I fixed my camera. Kelly's mic is better. I think
my mic is better. My gain is up. Like we're rocking now. We're cool.
We good. We good to go. So we're gonna keep improving for you guys. Thank you all for joining again. We'll be back next week.